Welcome back to our Time with Tammy sessions. I'm glad that you have tuned in once again to watch these, and I hope you're finding them to be helpful and meaningful. I'm here with Tammy again today as she is transitioning, as she's moving in and getting situated. This is our take 2. We did this yesterday, and we looked a lot nicer. Tammy had on a really nice dress, and I had it on a jacket, and well, it just didn't make it. So we're going to try this again and try to recreate for you all what we shared with each other yesterday. So one of the questions that was submitted was, what is an obstacle or a mistake that you had early on in adolescence that you overcame or had to deal with, and what did you learn from it?
Okay. By nature, I am inherently an introvert. And so as a middle school and high school student, I tended to be really quiet and really shy. I didn't put myself in new opportunities, didn't go out of my way to make new friends. And because of that, a lot of people thought I was aloof or stuck up, which I didn't realize until high school reunions. I really wish I had learned to come out of my shell more in high school and early college rather than having to do that in adulthood. But it was just a matter of taking a chance and doing it, and I discovered I didn't die, and so I would try it again and see. And it's okay to be uncomfortable with new things, but you got to put yourself out there a little bit.
So you learned to be a little bit more mindful of the way in which your introversion could be misperceived.
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the things you said yesterday was that you frequently, even though you've learned kind of how to function in crowds and be talkative and engaging, that you still need to rest.
Yes. When we take those personality profiles and you're either an I for introvert or an E for extrovert, that's the only letter that seems to ever change for me. So I'm somewhat in the middle, but I think it's because I've learned to be more outgoing and friendly. But by nature, I'm an introvert. So there comes a point at which I have used all of my socialization energy, all of my peopleness, and I need to go be alone to refuel. And so that's when I go home and sit on the back porch and enjoy my bird feeders or go for a walk in the woods or work jigsaw puzzles on my iPad or pray or meditate or read a good book.
Okay. So, like I said yesterday, for those of you who are freaking out, I want to get Tammy something for the pounding at their new home, something for their pantry, or, a gift of some sort. She's just giving you a gift. She likes birds, so maybe you could get her some bird feed, maybe a birdhouse. She likes to do puzzles, maybe an Apple gift card so that she could purchase a puzzle app. Lots of things. And I think, didn't you say you also like to mountain bike?
I do. We like to bicycle. Mountain and road, but primarily mountain bike.
Very good. So if you're having all of this anxiety, you don't need to have it if you're thinking about getting Tammy something. She's given you all of these options, and I'm sure she'd be grateful for anything. And I want to thank you for extending your hospitality to her as she is in the midst of this transition. So that being said, we talked about a challenge in your adolescence. What's a challenge that you've had as an adult? Because sometimes we want to relegate our mistakes to early on in life and, neglect to acknowledge that even as adults, we frequently mess up. Some of us, like me.
Every single day.
Some of us more than others. So what is one lesson that you've learned as an adult from a mistake?
As an adult, I would say I've learned that there's always more than one perspective to anything that happens. Early on in one of my pastoral appointments, I was not the senior pastor, but I made some comments in a staff meeting that hurt another staff member's feelings because I didn't have all the information. I didn't have enough information to have made a decision and a comment. And it took a couple of years to repair that relationship. So I've learned that it's important to listen, to think about what you say and to realize that you may not have all the facts and that there might be another perspective that really changes the way you view something.
So you were the new kid on the block and you didn't have
was.
all the inside information about the organization you were part
Yes.
of? I just can't imagine that.
And I think sometimes we don't realize that every church, we think, well, it's just different congregations of the United Methodist Church. but every congregation is so very different. They have their own group of songs that they know and love, their own ways of doing things. They have things that come around on their calendar. They have things that people feel very tender about that you may not know coming in.
Yep, every congregation has its own little soul.
And that's why last Monday's onboarding that we did with our conference coach was so very helpful, because it began to get us to talk about some of those things that I could really benefit from knowing, but you might not think to tell me. And so while I got to do that with the staff and with some of the lay leadership, I'm hoping to continue to be able to do that and to listen and to hear about people's hopes and dreams and their heart and what they love about this church and what they think our struggles are as we go forward, to hear that from more members of our congregation.
I look forward to that too, and I look forward to continuing these sessions with you, and maybe we'll let Davis do an interview session at some point.
That could be fun.
Yeah, he might. I don't know. That might get too crazy though. He submits some of these questions, so we'll have to see. Okay, well, one of the things, as you mentioned, onboarding, that did come up that people are interested in is sort of your history of going into ministry. I know we touched on it in a previous video. Like the audio was poor in that one, and so we didn't, didn't get that out there like we wanted to. But, when did you go into ministry? What did you do before you were in ministry? What have been some of your professional experiences that have really prepared you for sort of this moment to be the first female senior pastor
of Anniston,
the youngest of this really big organization that has
Am
a
I
daycare?
really the youngest?
I think so. No one has confirmed that for me yet, but
Okay.
I'm thinking you're the youngest senior pastor that we've had.
Well, I'm 50. Okay.
I think you're pretty close.
We'll check on that.
If there's
and
any
see.
fact checkers out there,
Let
check
us know.
us. Yeah,
Okay.
let us know. Is Tammy the youngest senior minister that we've had?
Okay. So let me see if I can share that and do it effectively and do it in a brief time span. First felt called to ministry as a teenager, growing up in a different denomination. I did my undergraduate work in psychology at Samford University, and then went to work for DHR as a social worker. Decided to stay home with my children when they were first born, and we homeschooled. I started a homeschool group that's still operating. At the time, we had about 300 families, so that was a lot on your plate to be responsible for your 2 children and 300 other families, making that journey. And so I managed to delay answering God's call to ministry for 17 years. And I should say I delayed answering the call to pastoral vocational ministry, because I tried doing other kinds of ministry. I did women's ministry, I did children's ministry, music ministry, parachurch ministry, but there's nothing like surrendering to the ministry God has called you to. So I did that in the fall of 2005 and began pastoring Ebenezer and Hebron United Methodist churches out near the Georgia line out in Cherokee County in January of 2006. I was there for 2.5 years, started seminary at Asbury at the same time. In June of 2008, they transferred me to Gadsden First United Methodist Church as the associate pastor, where I had the youth group, and then explored some other ministries. We started a Thursday night worship service. We expanded some women's ministry, tried some different outreach programs. And in June of 2013, they transferred me to Albertville, to Hewitt Memorial United Methodist Church. During that time, I finished seminary, went through the ordination process, and was fully ordained in 2013. While I was in Albertville, we combined the Summit, which had been a church plant from 2006, I believe, and Hewitt Memorial. We put those 2 churches together to create Hope of Albertville. That was a lay-driven process happening. And our research about how to do that, how to do a vital merger, take 2 churches and create a new one from it, told us that there were 5 key things that needed to happen. We needed a new name, a new mission and vision, a new location, a new pastor, and we needed to go silent or fallow for 6 months. We needed to focus on becoming one church, creating our new identity, and then relaunch to the community. Because we were happening outside the new church pipeline in our conference, we were kind of having to reinvent the wheel for ourselves. And so when appointments came around, they decided to try letting me stay and transferring Tony. And that was really hard, and it became evident to me between announcing appointments and August of that year that it was not going to go well.
Because
So
part of it had
Mhm.
been that it was really important for a new pastor to be
really
assigned.
was, because everybody needs to sacrifice at the same amount to come in. Otherwise, it begins to be, well, they won and we lost. And so the story we kept hearing was that 2 or 3 years down the line, you're having some minor conversation about what color to paint a room, and somebody says, well, we should get to pick the color because you got to keep your pastor. When, of course, you want to be everybody's pastor,
Right.
but the pastor who had been at the summit, Tony Jones, a good friend of mine, had been with them for 7 years. You know, so they were grieving his loss, and the people at Hewitt were thrilled to see me stay. And so it immediately became a dividing line instead of a unifying line. And I wanted them to succeed. We had worked hard. We had prayed. We had tried to follow what God was doing. And I don't think the decision to leave me was anybody trying to undo that. I think they too thought they were making a good decision. But when it became evident it wasn't, what do we do to give that its best chance? God opened the door at that point for me to go to the Family Success Center in Gadsden. The Family Success Center is a family resource center working to make families in Etowah County safe, stable, and strong. So there are 17 programs that operate in or through that building, about 31 people who operate those programs, 12 funding sources, including federal grants, state grants, foundation grants, United Way allocation, the need to fundraise about 30% of that budget every year. And as the executive director, all of that was my responsibility, collecting and dispersing every penny of it, raising every bit of that money, hiring the people who worked those grant programs, making sure we complied with everything those grants required of us. So some of that was really, really helpful skills that there aren't a lot of seminary classes to teach, but I believe fit well with the great diversity and variety of ministries and things that happen through this church.
Oh, absolutely. Every time I hear you share about, I learn something new every time you share this, and now I've heard it twice now because our recording yesterday didn't work. But I just am reminded how God's Spirit has been at work through your appointment here, and
I
how
think it has.
your fiscal knowledge through being at Family Success Center, and your working with so many staff members, and your familiarity with nonprofits. I mean, this is amazing. It's really
And
exciting
whereas
to me.
I dearly loved my time at Family Success, I consider that ministry. It was what we call an ATEM appointment, or appointment to extension ministry. So it was still my appointment, it just was not a parish-based appointment. I knew I was called to the work of an elder in our church rather than a deacon. And my work at Family Success was more of what a deacon does, connecting the church with the world,
Right.
which is important work, but I missed preaching and teaching and organizing the church and leading a congregation. So a year ago, I came on board at Atala First United Methodist Church part-time in addition to my work at Family Success. And that's why I was thrilled this year when they called and offered me this opportunity to come back full-time into parish-based ministry.
Well, I know that the folks at Anniston First are going to be excited to meet you this Sunday,
excited to meet
those who are able
them.
to be at worship, and I know they will enjoy working with you and being
Mhm.
in ministry with you, as I have enjoyed it for the brief few weeks. So
Good.
I hope you will tune in next week for our next Time with Tammy session, and I hope this has been helpful to you as you work to get to know Tammy just a little bit better. Let me know when you're feeling froggy,
I
Christopher.
think he gave you a thumbs up.
Oh,
He's good.
okay. Oh, I love doing this so much. It's the afternoon, and it's Friday.
It's Thursday, but
It's our Friday, and
We're really better in the morning.
Well, oh, okay.
Okay.
You ready?
Okay.
Well, I can't even get it out. This is not that hard. It's really
no,
not.
it's not.